I think there was some inkling before we got there because my friends, some of my friends, when I told them about going to the governor's mansion, they said, "Well, now you're not going to sign with Kentucky, are you?" And being the true like I was, oh no, I'm not going to do that. So lo and behold, I that was in my mind when the governor was explaining to me the impact this would have, if I were to sign with the SEC, to integrate the SEC, become the first African American to integrate, the SEC, and it all.
Join me, Jeremy Swick, on Into the Unknown, a podcast that delves into the personal journeys, stories, and experiences of individuals across diverse professions. As a historian by trade, I firmly believe that our personal histories shape our present and offer valuable insights into our paths ahead. With that being said, let's get into it. Well, thank you for joining us today. I'm here with Nate Northington, who played at Kentucky from 1966 to 1967. Thank you for being with us today, Nate.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Glad that I can, glad for the opportunity to interview with you guys. So I appreciate it.
Definitely. So I just really want to start off. I just want to hear a little bit about your story.
Okay. Well, my story, of course, kind of goes way back. I was born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky, of course. And just from a young age, I began playing all sorts of sports. So I really enjoyed, playing sports, especially football. I grew up in a city where I had some neighbors and some role models that I looked up to. People like Wes Unseld, who was a neighbor of mine, played a lot of time in his backyard. And as he grew up there in Louisville, also lived down the street from Muhammad Ali. And of course, he was a tremendous, role model for me as well. As far as football-wise, I didn't get a chance to know Lenny Lyles when he played at the University of Louisville, but he played with the Baltimore Colts and played at the University of Louisville, of course. So it was a great football player. And so really, athletics was a big part of my life growing up with my friends and all of that. I knew from an early age that I had pretty good talent, pretty fast, and I could probably outrun most of the kids in my neighborhood, about all of them really. So we used to, run around a lot, play ball a lot, and so I just felt like that I was destined to be to make history somehow in athletics. So that's kind of where we came from.
And that makes a lot of sense. So once you got to high school, were you heavily recruited out of high school? Were there colleges looking at you, or what? And also, what made you end up eventually deciding on Kentucky?
In high school, actually, I guess in junior high school, went to a segregated school up until the 10th grade, actually. So I grew up in a school that was segregated, and we had a tremendous basketball team. We didn't have organized football, so I played a lot of sandlot football. But then when I went to high school, naturally I was looking forward to playing high school football, and the coaches saw what kind of athletes we were by coming to our basketball games in junior high school. My dad, he was I guess when I grew up as a kid, my father was just pretty much a football fanatic, and at that time, so my earliest memories are sitting on the couch with him watching NFL, because he was more of an NFL player, NFL fan than he was a college. So the biggest team at that particular time, the greatest runner back was Jim Brown from Cleveland Browns. But there also was people like Gale Sayers, So when I grew up, there was tremendous African-American athletes playing in the NFL. And because I wanted to pattern myself after them. And so we used to play football on the sandlots. We would go to, there was no football fields actually. We played on church beside the churches, in between where we could find a field. That's where we played. Sandlot, we just get up a team. And in most cases, a lot of the guys were older than me, but that didn't bother me. I welcomed the challenge. So I grew up just loving the game of football. We watch the games on Sunday, and then we'll go out at halftime and we'll throw the football down the street, with each other and all of that. So but I had a lot of role models, like I said, Muhammad Ali, and then those guys, and I watched them when I was a kid, coming on TV they used to have a program called Tomorrow's Champion, which aired in Louisville on every Saturday. They would have young kids, 12, 13, 14, 15, boxing. And I would watch it all the time. And this young kid by the name of Muhammad Ali, 14 or 15 years old. And oh, that guy's going to be great, man. He's going to be something. Where he would dance around and play with people, So I know known him. I lived right down the street from him up until about 8 years old. Then we moved, but I still followed him. And but when I got to high school, to answer your question, really just looking forward to playing organized football. So we started that and played junior varsity. We didn't play varsity the first year because the school that I went to did not have a high school senior class yet. So I was in the highest class in the 10th grade, in the 11th grade, and the 12th grade. So the first year we played a JV team, and we were undefeated, unscored on. So we had a tremendous team, a lot of talent. A lot of the kids came from my neighborhood. At that time, we didn't have the busing, so we didn't bus people in. But anyway, so when we started out, this is an interesting story. Just mention this real quick if I can.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The coach put me at a wide receiver, and because he had a team the year before with the 9th grade at the high school that I went to, so he had his team pretty much already laid out, running backs, wing backs, and all of that. So, and I was thinking when he first put me wing back in, I'm like, nah, this is not where I want to play. So I didn't tell the coach that, but those were my thoughts. And so I said, I'm gonna show him what I can do. So it didn't take very long, about a week and a half, and he called us all into the room and said, I'm gonna move you to running back. So that was what I was waiting for. So I had a tremendous year as a sophomore. We were unscored on, as I said. I led the team in rushing and scoring. Same thing as a varsity player. I was a leading scorer in the city that year, first year as a junior, and as a senior, broke my hand, missed about 3 games. So, but my teammate Ron Gathright, was a tremendous athlete. He led the league in scoring. So I began to be recruited as a junior in high school, and so some teams from the Big Ten. I went to visit. On the school I visited was Purdue University as a junior, and at that time they had Bob Greasy was a quarterback. You might remember him.
Oh yeah.
And Miami Dolphins. So they had a tremendous team at that time. They were like top 10 in the country. Leroy Keys was an All-American running back. So they had a great team and a tremendous following up there in West Lafayette. So I really, that was the only visit I made other than University of Louisville. They had a good team, but they were in the old Missouri Valley Conference at that particular time. They had a very good team as well. But they weren't a national power. So they pretty much offered me a scholarship, as a junior. Kentucky at that time, as you know, was still not integrated. They're not integrated the program, playing in the SEC, Southeastern Conference. So, I followed Kentucky as a young person growing up because we got a lot of publicity living in Louisville the largest city in Kentucky. We got a lot of coverage. Kentucky got a lot of coverage. There are a lot of tremendous alumni, tremendous following in the city of Louisville. They're in Lexington, Kentucky. They were the premier team in the state. Kentucky was being in the SEC. Tremendous history and all of that. So I was aware of those things, but I had no really thoughts or as far as being able to go there to play because of these. They weren't integrated. I was aware that I guess when I was a sophomore with Unseld, I was being recruited by Coach Adolph Rupp to play in the SEC. And so Wesley, right across the street from me, so I heard stories and what was going on and all of that. And so that kind of fell through. He didn't sign with Kentucky. And so my thoughts were just that I was going to go to probably some team in the Big Ten, probably Purdue, or play at the University of Louisville, where we had some great players there as well. And that's kind of where we were in high school. Made all-state team and all of that. And I just knew that I was going to be a good player, a great player. Also, there was a couple of guys in high school who had a tremendous team at Manual High School, a guy by the name of Sherman Lewis. And you might have heard of him. He played at Michigan State and was a terrific running back, a punt return man, kickoff return, played in the pros. And he had spent many, many years in the professional arena as a coach, coordinator and all of that. So I was aware of Michigan State at that time. They had tremendous teams with Gene Smith, Bubba Smith, and those guys. So I kind of follow them as well. And so I knew I was probably end up going up somewhere in the Big Ten or University of Louisville. But things kind of changed along the way.
Yes.
Again, I never thought in 1,000 years, a million years, that I would have an opportunity really to even consider going to a team in the SEC. Obviously Kentucky would be the number one choice as far as integrating the league, and that's what I'd heard, that if they did integrate, it would probably be Kentucky first, because Kentucky was the northernmost school in the conference. At that time, there was only 10 teams in the conference. The teams that are there now, several of them came in later, like Missouri and South Carolina. They came in later on. Texas A&M. So they were not in the league at that particular time. It was Kentucky, Vanderbilt, Tennessee, Mississippi, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Georgia, Alabama, LSU. So those schools were in there at the time. Yeah. And so Kentucky, pretty much, I read the papers a lot, sports pages. Kentucky, of course, as you know, was a tremendous basketball program, for all those years. When I was a kid growing up, I would listen to them on the radio sometimes, the basketball teams they had. And they didn't show a lot of TV at that time. So most of it was on the radio that you catch games and everything. They also had a pretty good football program. As you know, you may have known that once upon a time they had a coach by the name of Barry Bryant, who was a coach in Kentucky in the 50s. And I don't know how they let him get away, but they did. There's a story that goes around about that. It's probably not an appropriate time to tell what the story is, but Adolph Rupp was the basketball coach and Barry Bryant was the football coach. So I guess Bryant might have felt that his future was better somewhere else, not necessarily at Kentucky. But they actually won the conference when he was a coach. Barry was the coach. So they had some good talent. Always had very good talent quarterbacks. Rick Northern at the time. They had Roger Byrd, who was an All-American running back at the time. So I kind of followed those guys too, So, but again, I was surprised when, as a senior high school coach, came to me and he asked me, he said, Nat, said he had received inquiries from the University of Kentucky. And what would I think about interviewing, meeting with the assistant coach, recruiting coach from Kentucky? It was it was very surprising to me. And yeah, I thought, well, I don't know. I've never thought about that before, but if he wants to talk to me, then I don't see any harm in talking, to them. You want to keep all of your options open. So he set up a time for me to talk with them. They contacted me, and we met with the coach, assistant coach, George Boone at the time, and we were probably the latter part of my senior year. And I had just, as a matter of fact, I think I had just returned. I came back from Purdue University before I met with Kentucky, and they had a coach by the name of Jack Mollenhoff, who was a Hall of Fame coach at Purdue at that time. And he asked me, he said, when do you think that you're going to sign with us? Accept a scholarship. And at that time, because there was a time that you had to, time for recruiting, that you had to, there was a deadline, or there was an open period where you could sign. And I said, well, I gave it to him that I would, probably sign at that particular time. And in the meantime, Kentucky came in, and again, I met with them and listened to what they were saying, and pretty much kind of felt that, after what happened with Wes Unseld, he turned him down. The next year, there was a guy by the name of Butch Beard, who Butch was All-American in high school as well. He signed with U of L. He and Wes Unseld both played with U of L. That was in '64 and '65. So here we are in '66, and Kentucky had tried to get a couple of those players, like those two guys, in basketball. So they weren't successful in recruiting the basketball players. So I guess they felt, well, we might as well try football now. So
yeah, because the year previously they had just played Texas Western in the NCAA championship, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
I can't. This is in basketball.
Yes, in basketball.
Okay. Well, not yet, because actually when they recruited me,
oh yes,
'65.
Yep. Okay.
This is 1965, so that game hadn't taken place yet.
Yes.
With Texas Western, the basketball game, and of course, so that hadn't happened yet, but it did happen actually after I signed to go to Kentucky. That game came along later, so which was very, very interesting.
Yes.
But they had been trying to recruit basketball players. Actually, what I heard just later on, that they in essence had really also had spoken with several football players in the state too. It wasn't widely known, publicly and everything, but they had tried to recruit several other football players before me, and Greg Page. So when I kind of let it be known, to the assistant coach, that I probably more likely I'm going to be doing this,
mm-hmm.
which was not something that I guess he wanted to hear,
Yeah.
And so I don't know how it happened, but several weeks later, my coach, high school coach, Jim Gray, who's a Kentucky high school Hall of Fame coach, he came to me and he said, Nat, said, Governor Edward Bradford wants to invite you and your family down to the governor's mansion for dinner one Sunday. And, you'd be willing to go to that. And I've been to the governor's mansion before, the year before, because he always invited the all-state team to the mansion for dinner. And so I said, well, they didn't tell me exactly what it was for. I said, well, I guess I'm going to be in line to be all state again this year. So I didn't have a thought that they were, that, what the plans were at that particular time. So I agreed to go. My coach went, my mother, father, sister, one of my sisters that was still living at home. Two of my younger brothers are still living at home. And I'm sort of in the middle, so I had older brothers and sisters and younger brothers. And so we all got in the car and drove down to Frankfort, which is only 30 miles from Louisville, dinner with the governor. We ate dinner with the governor. And after dinner, he invited me and my high school coach to his office. And so I went to his office, and he explained to me the whole purpose of us coming down to the governor's mansion. That was to talk about the possibility of me signing to integrate the SEC and integrate University of Kentucky, of course. And I think there was some inkling before we got there, because my friends, some of my friends, when I told them about going to the governor's mansion, they said, "Well, so now you're not going to sign with Kentucky, are you?" And being a true Louisvillian like I was, oh no, I'm not going to do that. So lo and behold, I that was in my mind when the governor was explaining to me the impact this would have, if I were to sign with the SEC, to integrate the SEC, become the first African American to integrate, the SEC. And it all. I'm 18 years old, so I don't have the, I'm aware of the what has transpired in my lifetime. Growing up in a segregated environment in the city of Louisville, in a segregated school. At that time, I had seen the marching that taking place in Louisville. Dr. King had come to Louisville to march. He had come to the state of Kentucky to march for open housing in the state of Kentucky. And Governor Bradford was a governor at that particular time. We're talking about 1963, 64. I'm also aware of all the things that have taken place in our society as far as civil rights. The civil rights movement was in full swing at that time. The bus, the counter sit-ins, the everything that was going on in our society at that time. We were aware of all of that from school, also from the community. My best friends, they're actually from Montgomery, Alabama. So they would tell me all the things that they knew about what was going on and everything. And then, of course, the speeches, the things that were taking place in the school, the kids being kept out of the school, the Montgomery bombing that took place in the church. And so all this is in my mind, and I'm thinking, well, I'm not sure if I really want to be subjected to that, but I knew that God had a purpose, for me. I felt that in speaking with the governor, him explaining exactly what it would mean, the impact it would have on not just football in Kentucky, not just football in the SEC, but also nationwide, the whole country, the impact it would have for the SEC to be integrated. We're talking about all the schools that are in the South. Think about all the African American kids that are playing football there in the Deep South, that are going to all the HBCU schools, the black colleges. Talking about Walter Payton, talking about Joe Green, talking about just Buck Buchanan, all these tremendous athletes that are either going to HBCU school, Jackson State, Florida A&M, or else they're going to up north, out west, to the Big Ten. That's what Michigan State became a tremendous school by recruiting in the South. That's why some of those other Big Ten schools, Ohio State, and all of them became Nebraska, became tremendous football programs. And so Uh, but the governor explained to me, and I listened to what he was saying, and I felt that uh, uh, that God had given me the athletic ability, given me the talent, and given me the uh, intellectual ability. My parents had taught me about respecting other people, growing up in an environment where they were Christian parents, and they you know they were obviously very concerned about whether I should do it or not, but they did not try to influence me one way or the other. They left it up to me to make that decision because they didn't want to be in a position to say, well, if I didn't go do it, they said, well, I wish I had done it. So I just felt like it was at that point in time, it was the first time listening to the governor that I realized what a tremendous impact, an opportunity that I had to make a difference in the civil rights movement and in society. And I felt that God had given me those abilities, that talent. If I really trusted in Him, uh, this was an opportunity that I needed to take advantage of. And also, the governor assured me that he would do everything within his power to help keep me safe. And not only that, but he said that I would not be alone, that there was another African American player in the state, Greg Page, who was ready to sign as well. So I would not be going there by myself. There would be another player that would be able to share the load with me. So I felt it was my duty. And I thought about it, prayed about it. I just felt it was my uh, God-given duty and responsibility to take advantage of that opportunity. So I said yes. And the governor said, well, will you agree to sign with the University of Kentucky? I said, well, so he reached into his pocket, his coat pocket he had on, and he pulled out this paper and he unfolded it. So I just happened to have an athletic scholarship here with me.
That's great. That's
So he
great.
said, "Can you sign right here?" So they had kind of set it up. Governor Bradford, also the president of the university, Dr. Oswald. They were adamant. They were really pushing to to integrate the conference.
Yeah.
And they were going to do everything within their power to see that was done. Dr. Oswald was from California system. So these guys, and Governor Bradford was a young governor who welcomed Dr. King in when they marched on Frankfurt for open houses. So Kentucky became the first state in the South, south of the Mason-Dixon line, to have open housing where African Americans could buy homes in all communities, not just certain areas of the city, of the state. So I knew he was progressive, and I knew that he welcomed integration and civil rights. And so I wanted to be a part of it. I really had been a part of it, as far as knowledge and everything. I was not directly involved in the civil rights movement per se, but this was my opportunity to do that and to make an impact in our society. Because, as you know, the SEC was a great, college football programs. They had great football teams during all those years, and had won some championships, but they were still resistant, to change, and they voted on it. From what I understand, later on, the SEC had a vote of all the members of the conference to determine if they needed a certain percentage of the teams of the conference had to agree that they would place, the team that they signed someone. So they got enough votes to do that. but then they could not get young African Americans to come there to integrate. They knew Kentucky would have the best opportunity, the best chance. Again, being the northernmost university, Kentucky had already, the schools already integrated. Unlike, well, I guess all the schools were at that particular time. I guess they had, maybe the late 60s, middle 60s is when they finally integrated Alabama, some high schools in Alabama. So schools were integrated, but the programs were not. And as you know, this was the last major conference that had not integrated the SEC. And so to do that would be a tremendous, victory for civil rights.
Yes.
And I just felt like it was my, if God gave me that opportunity, put me in that position. And I remember guys like Muhammad Ali, Dr. King, his speeches. I just remember all those things. And I just felt like it was time for me to embrace that and to become a part of that. So I did.
That's fascinating. My next question is, what was your first, couple weeks on campus like? Was it a change? Was it shocking? I know you had Mr. Page there as well.
Well, first of all, I'll say this is that, when while they were recruiting me, I asked a question about the number of African American students that were enrolled in UK. I think the football coaches told me that there was probably about 500 students enrolled in Kentucky out of possibly, at that time, 18,000. It wasn't a big number, but they kind of overestimated how many there were. There were probably about between 30 and 40 or 50. So
it's funny how
I didn't find it out until So I didn't find it out until I got there, And Greg and I were the first ones there, of course, on the freshman team, as you mentioned. It was different because I grew up in a segregated school initially. For the last 2 years, we were integrated, and we had a very, very close knit team, black and white. We would go to each other's houses and everything. So I was accustomed to interacting with white, individuals and teammates. And so the football was was not a problem. It was okay because we lived together in a freshman dorm. We had our own dormitory, like a sorority house, actually, what it was. So we had our own cafeteria. We had everything right there. So we were pretty close-knit group. Greg was much more outgoing. I was very, very shy and kind of to myself. But Greg was very outgoing. He had a great personality. So, but we all got along well together. We had 4 in the room, Greg and I, and 2 white players, one from Louisville, Kentucky, that I played against in high school, Phil Thompson, and the other one was Marty New from Ohio. So they were accustomed to being around with interacting with African Americans as well. I guess we kind of felt like that wasn't going to be an issue as much as going to the other schools to play. It was not going to be a problem playing in Lexington, at our home field. But the question was what was going to happen when we went to some of the other conference states. The other students, the African American students, I think one of them made the comment years later during the documentary that was done, probably familiar with that, Forward Progress, integration of SEC football that was done by CBS Sports. And they interviewed one of the students at that time that became the director of Urban League, still is to this day, Peoples, PG Peoples. He said when that Greg came to the university, he said that was our hallelujah moment. He said they were our Jackie Robinsons. And so that's what they felt. The students, the African Americans, felt like that we were like Jackie Robinson, the way we came in to integrate the conference and everything. So they felt good about it. And I think that other students did as well. I think there was a sense of pride that touched us, when the conference. We didn't have any problem, really. There were a few comments made as I walked through campus sometimes, and but other than that, there was nothing major, no major problems. People kind of they looked at you a little bit differently, but you were just one of the few that were there. So,
and I've sensed that a lot of times, from what I've heard is, it's a lot more welcoming with the players because you're on a team together. You get used to each other. You, like any kind of team,
right.
There's that extra level, I think, of commitment and brotherhood with your own guys.
Right. Yes, I think they were mainly interested in how could you help the team.
Can you play?
Yep. It's a team sport. And if you were talented, if you were good, then hey, it was all good.
Yep.
Because if we were successful, you could contribute to that success. Then that's what they were looking for. And so we were not. Greg was a tremendous player, a defensive end, and I did pretty good myself, as a running back and a defensive back, kickoff, punt return specialist. So we were 3-1 as freshmen, and I think I led the team in yards per game, yards per carry, and so we did well as freshman players. We had a good freshman team. Only lost to Tennessee, touched 10-21 that year. We beat 3 other teams. So we were going to contribute quite a bit to the program, and so teammates were very, very cooperative, very welcoming to us.
What really happened in 1967?
Yeah, we were going to be a good team, good program. Unfortunately, I dislocated my shoulder in the last game as a freshman against Vanderbilt. Had a shoulder dislocation. Had to be prepared, go to the hospital to have it put in place. And I did well in our spring practice. This was in October. So when spring practice came around, I rehabbed it to the point where I could play. They switched me from running back to strictly defensive cornerback, punt return, kickoff, and had a real good spring practice. Ran back several punt returns for touchdowns in the spring practices. Intercepted quite a few balls and everything. So they were looking. I was going to be a starting cornerback. Greg was a tremendous defensive end. We had 2 guys who were probably all SEC defensive ends, so he was going to probably back them up. A couple of seniors going into next year, sophomores. So we both had very good spring practice that spring. And we're looking forward to coming back next year, that year in '67 for the fall practice. We came back to fall practice within a week or 2 weeks. We were practicing, and unfortunately, I dislocated my shoulder again. After going through the whole summer or spring without a problem, then I dislocated my shoulder again, which affected my ability to really be on the field. When I was on the field, of course, I did well, but it was very, very, just a bad thing that I could play as much as I wanted to.
Yeah.
And the worst thing that happened, of course, was when Greg was involved in a freak accident in practice and actually broke his neck. This was the second week of practice, fall practice. So he was paralyzed from his neck down, and that was pretty devastating to not just to me, but to the whole team, the coaching staff. Yeah. And then, believe it or not, within 2 weeks, another player who was a freshman during the scrimmage broke his neck in practice. He was paralyzed from the waist down. Marty New's brother, named Cecil New. So Greg was in the hospital, and I was seeing limited time towards practicing and everything because of my shoulder. And Greg was paralyzed from his neck down. So that was devastating, as I said. His parents was there they pretty much lived in the hospital. They came to the hospital and stayed there for a month, total of 38 days. Greg asked me to come by. We couldn't go see him. The team could not go. Players couldn't go. He didn't want us to go there. But he asked for them to have me come over to the hospital, and I did. And it was just devastating to me. He was in traction and everything, able to move. And but he wanted to see, just like Greg, he wanted to make sure that I was okay. The condition that he was in, and he was concerned about me, about my condition, and state of mind, and all of that. So for me, and so we had a game coming up against Indiana University. That was the first game of the season, and we went to Bloomington to play IU. I wasn't able. I was a starter because of my shoulder. I couldn't start. As a matter of fact, they even changed my position, cornerback to safety, because they felt like that I would not have to tackle as much. I'll be more involved in pass protection, less tackling. So they did that to try to help reduce any shoulder injuries. And so I didn't didn't get a chance to start, but I did participate in the game. And actually, when I played against IU, that broke history as well. That was history making, because that was the first time that a Big Ten team that played against an SEC team that had a African American player. So, and I didn't think about that. I didn't realize that until 10 or 15 years ago. When I had a niece that went to IU, and in one of her classes, they told her that, and she told me. So that's when I first found out about it. But anyway, so I played against IU. Next game was going to be against Mississippi, against Ole Miss. They're in Lexington, Kentucky, the old Stowe Field. Because I remember all of that like it was yesterday, today really, and there was not a lot of publicity regarding my being able to play or play against Mississippi. The game just was going to come, and we were going to, play. And the day before the game, Friday night, Greg had been in the hospital 38 days, paralyzed. His condition, I guess, had deteriorated to the point where they didn't know if he was going to make it or not, live or not. Fortunately, that night, even that first ball game, he succumbed to his injuries. He passed away. And the coaches woke us up early that morning to let us know. They didn't want us to hear it on the radio or the TV, so we had a team meeting. They told us about it. And so that was just devastating to all of us, coaches and everybody, to lose a person like that, teammate, a person who was trailblazer, pioneer. A lot of people know my name, and, but I try to make sure that people know Greg Page as well.
That was another fun episode of Into the Unknown. I truly appreciate you taking the time to listen. And if it provides you any value or entertainment, I would love if you shared it with others, liked, subscribed, and really just help the podcast grow. Again, tell a friend, tell a foe, just anyone who might enjoy hearing some stories of people's own journeys and what got them to where they are today. Till next time.